Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Jamie Photography. So, the perfect black and white, how do we go about that? Now, a lot of people think that shooting in black and white directly with the camera gives you a good black and white, but I tend to find that gives me quite a neutral, quite a plain, two-dimensional look. And you probably see from some of my previous videos that I'm quite a big fan of Silver Efex Pro, and I had version 2, which has been getting quite old now, and I have to say that I was delighted to find that DxO reached out to me and asked me if I would like to try the new Nik Silver Efex 7 to see if it had made any improvements and if it was any better. And of course, having now spent a few days working with it, I've realized that yes, indeed, it is pretty impressive actually. So I'm going to take you through and show you what it can do. I'm going to take a couple of images. This is one image here of the Playhouse in London, 1984, a couple of years ago now, when the play was still showing. Perhaps it should read 2024, but that's irony. We can we can put that to one side. But this is a shot that I've processed using Nik Silver Efex 7, and where did we start with it? Well, we started here. This was the original shot here, and then what I did, I put it into Silver Efex 7, and we were able to produce this image here. And what I'm going to do in this video is take you through 2 or 3 images and show you how to process a black and white using Silver Efex, and it's really quite incredible actually what you can do. So there are some links down below. You can get a free trial of Nik Silver Efex from the Nik Collection 7. You can just go up and click on free trial, and you can try it for yourself for a month and see whether you like it as well. And if you do, I've also got a link down below to purchase, give you a 10% saving off the price. So see what you think as well. I've been a fan of Silver Efex for many years, and to be honest, I'm honoured to be approached by DxO to promote their software, because it's software that I do like. But anyway, yeah, have a look at that. Links down below. So let's jump in and take a couple of images. So this is the Carpenter's Arms. It's in a lovely little village called Laycock in Wiltshire in England. A great deal of the Harry Potter movies was filmed in this little village, including most of the scenes from inside Hogwarts were filmed at Laycock Abbey. But what you'll notice over here to the left is a little cottage down the back here, and you'll find that this is James and Lily's house, which is in fact Harry Potter's parents, where they used to live before Voldemort obviously sorted them out. So if you ever get a chance, if you're over in England, Wiltshire way, go to Laycock. You'll find there's an awful lot to see from Harry Potter if you're a Harry Potter fan. But anyway, I was there, shot the Carpenter's Arms, and what we're going to do is we're going to process this into black and white using Silver Efex Pro. So I've loaded Silver Efex in, and it loads up as plugins to Lightroom and Photoshop, but I'm just going to use it in Lightroom here. Just going to go to Edit In, and then I'm going to go down to Nik 7. There it is, Silver Efex, using the adjustments that we've got, and it'll throw itself over into Silver Efex. There we go. So the image is instantly given the neutral filter when you come over into Silver Efex. Nothing more than just being turned black and white is what it's done. So you could do that, but then you can also do that in Lightroom just by clicking the black and white. But what this does do, it does open a huge variety of sliders and functions. And then you've also got local adjustments, which I will also go through as well and show you how they work. You can see at the top we have a histogram, and you can look through the different values within the histogram, and they light up on the screen to show you where those areas are. So you know that if you make changes in any of those specific areas, you can see specifically where they are. You can also click the boxes. If you click the box, it will also show you if you're clipping anywhere, and you can see here there's little black marks have appeared just there on those lights. So they're clipping. And you can do the same for the blacks. You can click on there and you can just see if you're just touching the blacks. And for me, a little tiny bit of overexposure and underexposure works very well. I'm always happy to have that full dynamic range of contrast in the shot. So within the global adjustments, we can make adjustments to the image as a whole. and we can change brightness, highlights, midtone, shadows, very much like you can do in Lightroom. But of course the effects are done in here. Now, before I go into all of this, because you can of course start from the top and start working your way down, but one thing that the Nik Collection does have is a lot of presets already made available to you. And if you click on all Niks, it will give you all of them here, and there is quite a number. I think we have in total something like 70, something like that, 60. Yeah, quite a lot. So you can just literally pick on one, and it will do the correction. So I can use these little boxes at the top, so you can either have a 50-50, so you can see what it looks like before and after, and you can also put the image above and below, so that you can look at it as well. And of course the left one is just main screen for the image. So in this case, this is quite an old-fashioned, lots of grain look, and then you can go through and make changes to that specific setting if you wanted to. So we could add more or less of anything we wanted to here. Hint of blue's quite nice as well. But for myself, I went through and picked out from here all of the presets that I like, and then I created a subsection. You just do that by going to this little plus indicator at the top here, create a new category, and then you can have your own set there. So if I click on Jamie, you can see I've moved down here. So as you go through, I've got 5, 6, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I've picked out from the ones that I like. So neutral, obviously, where we start from, and then we've got this high structure, harsh, which can work very well. Bear in mind that once you've selected the preset, you can still go through and make changes, and I will do that in a second once we've picked which one we think is best. You have a high structure smooth, and then you have a full dynamic harsh. These are just the ones I've picked, as I say. Full dynamic smooth, full spectrum inverse, and a fine art. That looks quite nice, I must admit. Then you've got a high key version of that, and then you've got a full contrast. Now you see there in that high key that it's got a little frame, and actually if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll find in finishing adjustments that you can take the image border and you can select an image border. In this case, I don't want that. I don't want a border in my my presets. So there's the preset there. Then we've got full contrast and structure, and we've got intensifier, which I find sometimes can be quite useful. So sometimes it seems a little bit dark, and as I say, we can always just brighten it up, use a little bit of dynamic brightening, and just brighten the scene if we wanted to from that point there. We've got more silver, same thing, add more brightness if we want to that. And then this last one, dynamic brightness, is the one I've created. So if I just go on to dynamic brightness there, you can see this is one, not necessarily that I've used for this image here, but this is one that I quite like. And I can make changes to this as well. So if I want to make this a little bit less dynamic brightness there, like so, maybe bring up the highlights a little bit and the mid-tones. If that's something, then I think, well, actually, I would like to keep that as my preset. Then you hover over your made preset and you can just hit this refresh button here, and that will effectively update the preset with the settings that you've got. So it's quite easy to use in that sense, and it does take over with it all of the local adjustments as well, should you want to save those. So have a play with that, have a look at the different ones that you want, create your own selection, and when you're in a selection, if there is something you specifically like, you can just go down to the 3 dots and you can just click add to category and then pick the category that you've created, and it will put it in there for you. It's really as simple as that. So we're going to go back to there, and we're going to pick, I think we're going to go with maybe high structure, harsh, or smooth. I'm not sure. Perhaps we'll go with harsh, and then we can play with it from there. So let's just run down what all the controls do. Also, it's worth mentioning in the histogram, you can also look at the red, green, and blue histograms as well, just to determine whether there's anything different there. Now you might say, well, why would you do that in a black and white? But you got to remember that the original data is color. So any changes that you make, and I can go down here to the sensitivity section, I can affect what was red, what was yellow, green, etc. So look at the sky here. Well, you know we had a bit of orange around here. So if I reduce the red, you can see that it will pick up and the yellows. It will pick up what was red and yellow. Same if I brighten them up, and it will brighten up those areas that had that color. And the same goes for color filters, which are also here. If I click on the sort of blue color filter, it will show the image as though we've taken the image through a blue filter, so only really blue light's coming through. Anything that's not blue is being suppressed. Then we've got green, we've got yellow and orange, which is where most of the brightness was. We've got red, and then we've got just the standard grey one. So I mean the green one looks quite interesting because you can see the plants get lit up a little bit more because they're green. Everything else stays the same. So I'm going to go with the green there. I'm going to go back up to the top. So we can adjust the overall brightness, that's obvious, and the highlights, midtones and shadows, very much like Lightroom. Obviously you don't have midtones in Lightroom, but you can sort of add more or less to your highlights in terms of the Silver Efex Pro way of working. So I'm just going to go up and down a little bit. If I go all the way down the bottom, I can just see where we are. If I go all the way to the top, I can see the sky is very bright there. So I'm probably going to go just under. Midtones, it's quite bright in the midtones anyway, so I'm probably just going to bring that down just a little bit. And then the shadows, maybe just open the shadows just a little bit. Gives us quite a nice effect. Now, dynamic brightness, this is quite interesting. It's a trade-off between standard brightness. So if I increase the dynamic brightness, I'm likely to have to reduce the main brightness. But the dynamic brightness looks at the contrast in the image. And then gives you an effect to go with it. So if I raise that by 26% and then take down the main brightness by a sort of similar amount, slightly less, but you can see the effect. We get a more dramatic, almost more 3D look to the image. I do like this dynamic brightness. Have to be careful with it. It's quite a powerful slider. If you go too high or too low, it spoils the look of the image. So you just have to be a little bit careful with it, but it's very powerful. We then have contrast adjustments. Now, what makes black and white work really is the contrast. And as I talked about it at the beginning when we first came in, we look at making sure we've got a little bit of black clipping and we've got a little bit of white clipping. So we've got the whole dynamic range shown. So we can look at these settings here. So this amplify white, amplify black, those settings came from the preset when we selected the preset. So we can increase that effect by dropping them down maybe still further to get that sort of deeper effect. And then also we can raise the overall contrast if we want to, or we can reduce the overall contrast depending on what we want. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. I'm just going to bring up those whites just a little bit and the blacks. Not too much. I mean, you could really bring them up and then drop the brightness down to compensate. You just have to be careful that you try and take just small movements. Otherwise, the image can start to look unnatural quite quickly if you get all of the sliders sort of mixed up. So just do a little bit at a time. Now, structure adjustments, I do like this section here. The structure really deals with how much detail and how much emphasis is given to the detail within the image. So as you can see, 33% has been added by the preset as we came in. We can increase that more if we want to give it even more. It can get rather overpowering if you go a bit too far, but for the sake of this, I'm going to stick around the same. You can deal with the highlights, midtones and shadows structure separately. So I can always add more structure to the shadows if I want to. And that's quite an impact. You see, if I go from one side there to another, it can be quite a high impact. But what you're able to do is you're able to go back up to the contrast adjustments, and if the structure is starting to get a bit heavy overall, you can always add a little bit of soft contrast to compensate, which works quite well. So we could just add a little bit of soft contrast in there, and that can work extremely well. Just soften the image ever so slightly, and it plays against the additional structure that you've added. And we can add or reduce the structure in the blacks. And in this case, I think we can just add a little tiny bit, not a lot, because it has quite an effect, as you can see if I bring that up or bring that down. Just going to bring up a little tiny bit, about 9%. And then you have fine structure. Now, to see that, we can zoom in. So if I just go 1 to 1 here and zoom in on the image, we can see that if I add fine structure, so we're looking around the carpenter arms here, if I add fine structure, it really picks up on the edge details. Very, very fine. It works. Certainly if you were blowing the image up very large, that would be extremely noticeable. So I'm just going to click the main screen there again, zoom at the top. And then we got the tonality protection. Now these two sliders are really good fun. If you look at the way the shadows work, if I open that up there, you think, well, that didn't really change very much if I go a lot further up. And what you're starting to see is that you get quite an effect in the shadows in these darker areas when we've lit them up. If I put that back down the bottom, you see that it's quite dark through here. But if I bring that tonal projection up, you get a real balance between the darker areas and the lighter areas. And I really do like this. Same with the highlights. If I bring the highlights up, slider up, it works really well. Probably be a bit too much. So I'm just going to go a little bit lower there. So now we've been through these main sliders here, we then have the local adjustments. Now there are four ways you can deal with this. There is an add control point, so I can click on this control point and I can pick, let's say, the sky up here, and you can make the circle bigger or smaller by either moving the dots, just so we can get the sky where we want it, or you can just move this little slider here as well. That would just make it bigger or smaller. And then you can then adjust the luminance, the chromiance, and the diffusion. Now these black ones are how this radial filter effectively affects the overall image. So you can reduce the luminant effect so it's only within the radial, or you can increase it so it's outside of the radial. So if I bring that up, you can see this area here is quite dark. If I bring it down, it will change the area here. So you just got to decide where you're going to go, and the chromiance is effectively the over effect, almost the shine that you get around the radial. So you can see again, if you look at the roof over here, as I adjust this, you can see that it has quite an effect there, and I quite like that up a little bit higher. And then of course you've got the diffusion, which is effectively your feather. So you can have quite a tight edge, so it's not affecting the area around it, or you can have a quite a diffused effect, so it comes more out into the image. So we're going to take that quite small because we want to stick to just really where the sky is. And then you've got all the sliders that we were just talking about, but now it's open because we've got a control point out. It's now opened all these sliders. So there's the ones we were dealing with before. It's now opened all the sliders again. So you now can go into literally all of that detail within this specific area that you've chosen. So the level of detail that you can go to is pretty amazing. So the sky is quite bright here, so we're just going to perhaps bring the amplify, the whites down a little bit, and I might just bring the brightness down a little bit as well, just there. And I think what we'll also do is put selective tones in the highlights, so we can just alter that as well. So, and because we've got a diffusion between the main part of the image and the sky, you get a blending between the two, which works very, very well. What you also have here is a clear view and intensity. So if I put that up to 100, you can see that you get this really intense look. I mean, I've gone all the way to the top, which is crazy, right? But so, and if you put it to 0, you can see that has a little effect here. But if we just add a little bit of that in, it just gives almost a sort of taste edge, almost old-fashioned film style as you're dealing with it. And because we've got that diffusion, we're getting it blended across from one to the other. So that's the first control point. The second control point is effectively a linear type of gradient. So I can select that, and then I can bring that a linear in very much as you would in Lightroom. But because you now have all of that control again, from here, I could darken down the top of the sky here if I wanted to a little bit. So I could just bring that brightness down a little bit up there. There we go. So I can do that, and you can change again. You can change the luminance. There you go, and you can change the chromiance as well with that image. So if I wanted to get these edges of these clouds really, you know, I could bring that down and get those quite dark there, and you can see, look how much dynamicness there is in that sky now. So we could we could probably add a bit of fine structure into that sky as well, really just to make it work up there. And then again, you've still got selective tones, so we could decrease the brightness a little bit there, open up the mid-tones a little bit, just to that sky, just working on that sky. And you can see it just takes about a second or two to render, but look at the detail that's in that sky now. Let me just go back to where we started. So this is the image we started with when we first came over here into Silver Efex, and this is what we've created. Yeah, look at the detail in the house here. Look at the detail in the sky as I come across. You know, that was what came out of Lightroom. We were pretty happy with it, but look what we've got now. Incredible, incredible detail. And the last two you've got here, you have a polygonal control. So effectively you could select if you wanted to. I could say, for example, I'll click at the top of the tower here, and I'm just going to come down and draw around, just draw around the tower of the church here with my polygonal selection. So I'm literally just drawing and clicking, and then I'm just going to come across there, and we'll go back up to the top. So I've now just got the tower here illuminated. There you go. So again, we can now just deal with this one area alone. And I think if you've seen some of my videos, you'll see how I do like to use very selective contrast controls. So we could make, in this case, we could make that tower a little bit brighter. There we go. So it stands out a little bit more against the sky in the background there. I'm just going to reduce the luminance slider as well, just a little bit. There we go. So happy with that. And the last one is the last one over here, luminosity mask. You can pick with the luminosity mask a particular brightness or darkness that you want. You could pick the bright sky. You could pick the darkness of the tiles here. I'm just going to pick the roof here. And what it brings up is a mask options here. And you can see that you have a scale from your blacks to your whites and your blendings away from that. So I picked quite a dark area there. If I wanted to make it lighter, I could go to the mid-tones here. And I could extend the depth of the blacks, watching the sky up here, right? It's not helping the sky at the moment up there. And if I pull that slider down lower and bring this one up higher, I can affect the sky better because we were losing that top end. If I bring that back down again, you almost got like a tight HDR effect here on the sky, which you don't want, okay? So you need to make sure you got good blending when you look at your luminosity. So I'm just going to find the best place to just move these around just to get them in a good place. I quite like that. So this opens, of course, the same thing again. It brings up all of the sliders, but I'm not going to go back through all of them with this one. But what I am going to look at is the selective colorization. Okay, so what we can do, I'm just going to pull that out of the way for the minute. What I can do is add some of the original color back into this shot, right? Based on where we're thinking. So this is just below midtones, heading towards the darker zone. So if I raise the selective colorization, it will add the color back into just the dark areas. You can see here that mid area, sorry. The dark areas won't be affected and the light areas won't be affected. I can affect them by pulling this slider up and down more so that we can put the color back into the image, you see. So I can almost affect the total level. But of course, using a luminosity mask allows you to choose where exactly you want to do it. So these blues up here look nice. So it's too much selective color, but you could always add in just a whisper of color into your black and white, which gives you quite a nice effect. I mean, I do think you see the green there. You can just make out the green. The rest of it's quite dark. You can also be selective with just the greens. If you wanted to, you could use luminosity just on the greens and then be selective with those. In this case, I'm not going to put any color into the image. I'm doing a black and white, but that's how the luminosity mask works. So certainly have a play with those. We talked about the color filters earlier, so no need to go there. You've also got film types. Now, in the good old days when we used film, there were different films that you could purchase. I was a big fan of Ilford, Ilford HP5 Plus. I was always a big fan of that. It gave us quite grainy, quite contrasty shots back in the day. And you can, if you want to, pick any of those. The XP2, Ilford XP2 was really grainy and contrasty. So yeah, just go through, pick out a film that you particularly like. The FP4 was quite good. If you want to get a film effect, and I know some people like that sort of film noir effect, that sort of quite dark and black effect. You can get some really interesting shots with that. And there's the Ilford Pan F. That was also pretty good. So I could just click that if I wanted to, and that would give me that particular film. In fact, let's do it. Let's click on it, and then you can change the grain per pixel, and you can increase or decrease the level of hardness of that grain. So I can take different levels of grain there just to, if I wanted to, just going to make that a little bit higher. Gets quite a nice effect. We talked about sensitivity. We can change the colors and the brightness, effectiveness for each of those colors with these sliders. We have a standard curve. Well, when we selected that preset, it gave us this particular curve. And again, if we want to, we can alter that by just changing the position or adding more dots if we want to. There's literally nothing you cannot do here. The last two boxes, you've got film grain, which I think is quite interesting if you like that film grain look. I'm not one. I'm one of these people that tries really hard to remove as much noise as possible. So I'm just going to untick that. I don't want that there. And then we have the finishing adjustments. We talked about the image border earlier. The other sliders, the toning gives you the color toning. So you've got sepias if you want to go there. You've got other film-based colors that they used to do in the dark rooms back in the day using the different dyes. Selenium for me is one of my favorites. This one here, number 4. I really like that slightly grey blue tinge. I think that works really well. You've also got vignette settings, so you can apply a vignette. There are 3 lens fall-offs. There's a white vignette as well to give you that old style look, and you can emphasize that even more if you want to. There we go. And I think that can work quite well for sort of older images and 2 black frames. In this case, I'm just going to put a lens fall off in, and then you can burn the edges as well. If you really want dark edges, you can really overexpose effectively those edges. I'm not going to in this case. Now I've done all of that, I just want to adjust the overall brightness up here, and then we're just going to do the final global adjustments. Now we've done all those adjustments, I'm going to make it slightly brighter, and I'm going to say that one's a done deal. So once you're happy with it, you can just go down here and just click apply, send it back into Lightroom for you, and here it is. Where were we? We were here, and we've created a pretty awesome black and white there. So let's just do a quicker one here. This is the Shambles in York, and this is the shop that must not be named. I think that's wonderful. Of course, J.K. Rowling's modelled Diagon Alley in Harry Potter on this street in York. So good place to visit if you ever get a chance to come to the UK. By the way, all of the shots that you see that I'm processing here, my previous earlier videos have the processing for these, and you can download the raw images for these and process them yourself to get to this point, and then you can play with Silver Efex like I'm doing here. So let's do the same thing. Right click, go down to Silver Efex. We're going to include all the edits that are there, the adjustments that are there into Silver Efex. Here we are. Let's just make that full screen. There we go. And we can do the same thing again. But again, look down through. I'm going to go straight to the bottom to my dynamic brightness. There it is. So that's the before. Almost a sort of wishy-washy 2D-ness about it. And now we've got this sort of much more dynamic lighting. And that was just picking the one I selected there from before. So once you've got what you like, you can just apply the presets whenever you want to. So let's try high structure smooth, high structure harsh. That's quite nice as well. I do quite like full dynamic smooth. That can work very well. And then maybe fine art process. So that works well as well. So again, we've now got those adjustments in here. We can make our own adjustments. Let's open up the shadows a little bit, not too much. Let's bring down the highlights just a little bit, not too much again. A little bit in the mid-tone, just so we get more detail around here. Look at the soft contrast here, just roughly about there. I'm going to amplify the blacks a little. Amplify the whites just a little bit, not too much. Don't want to lose the sky. And then the tonality protection we were talking about previously, I can bring that up. Just see that change, fabulous. I just love how this area here just changed in when I brought that up. It's just wonderful depth that you get from that. So we're going to, and the highlights, let's go a bit more on the highlights here, a bit more tonal. That's nice. I'm not going to do any local adjustments on this one. I'm quite happy with the image. The sky looks really, really good. I'm not going to apply a film type. Do I need to change any of this? I'm not sure. Maybe just a little bit less on the yellows there, and just open up the blues a little bit more. I'm not going to make any change to the tone curve because I'm quite happy with the tonal balance because I processed it in Lightroom before we came in. I'm just going to go in and put my selenium effect in, and maybe we'll put a little bit of a vignette on the shot, and then just brighten it just a little bit more. I'm just going to change the soft contrast one last time, try and find that balance where it works really, really well, and I'm happy with that. So that's super. So I'm going to apply that and send that back into to Lightroom. Now what you did see there was that it didn't take me very long, just a few minutes, just to make those changes to get where I wanted to be. So that was where we started, and there's our black and white, quite a literally that silver effect that we really do like. So just to finish off, I'll do one last image. One of my favorite images, this from Virginia City in Nevada. I've got a good video on how this was produced. This truck was parked in front of these shops, looked fantastic, but there was Nissans and other cars all parked along the road here, and using generative fill I was able to remove them and really create something with this image. So feel free to go back and have a look at that shot. But let's turn this to black and white here using Silver Efex, which we did in the original video. So right click, edit in, go to Silver Efex, Nik 7 Silver Efex. We're going to use the adjustments that we've got, Silver Efex. We'll just main screen that again. So there we go. So we're going to go down through. So let me drop down to my dynamic brightness that I always like, the one I tend to start off with. We've got the slider in the middle. So there's the after, there's the before. It's a bit much, I must admit. So I think what we're going to do is just back it off a little bit. So certainly drop the contrast just a little bit, drop those amplified blacks down. Structure's quite high, but that's looking better. It's a little bit dark on this side because we've got this line in here. So I'm just going to go into that and turn that off. I don't want that one on the side there. I just want to keep that one sort of the same brightness all the way through. I think I want to soften the image just slightly because there's a lot of harshness in here. So we can do that with the soft contrast, and we can just bring that down a little bit, and it does make it slightly brighter. So we're just going to back the brightness off, just bring that down, not too much, and then just going to bring the highlights down as well. Just get that where I want it to be. A little bit less on the midtones. Perhaps increase the shadow tonality, yeah, and the highlights tonality. Oh yeah, that works really, really well. I'm not going to put any color in there. Just going to drop down. I've got my selenium tone in there, so I'm happy with that. And this has got the Ilford Pan 400 film type on here. I can remove that if I want to and just take it back to neutral. And there we go. That, I think I like that shot there. That looks really good. So let's just do the before and after. There's the before. We did anything. There's the after. Gives that really biting black and white feel, which I really do like. So apply that, and we're back into Lightroom. So there you go. They're the four main images that we did. So that one I think worked out very, very well. That one worked well as well. I love the sky in that shot, and the carpenter's arms also worked well. So if you really do like your black and whites, you've got so much control over what you want to do with the black and whites and how you can make them look. So there we go. I'm going to leave you with that. Feel free to have a play. There is the free trial link down below. Go and try it. If you enjoy doing black and white, and I do, you see from my images, probably a third of my images, I do go black and white. If you enjoyed the video, then please click like, and Always love to see your comments and questions and any tips you might have. Feel free to put those down below as well. And if you haven't already subscribed, then please subscribe and join me on this happy adventure I'm having on YouTube. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.